So I run a research company, and I spend my days thinking about how to make our financial lives better. Not just mine, or my family's, or my clients, but the financial lives of those people, the billions of people who don't have access to a bank account, or any kind of savings, or any money management, really. And I'm constantly frustrated that we don't understand the true value of doing something as simple as going cashless. We don't really appreciate the possibilities that open up to us if we got rid of our banknotes, our coins, our physical wallets and purses, and instead use something really available to us on a regular basis, our mobile phones. And I talk about this to my friends, family, clients who are bankers and investors and governments, and they just don't get it. They just don't understand how an individual person going cashless has the power to change the world, which is what all of us want to do. So I can explain this in two ways. I can explain this as me, a geeky researcher, with insights, logic, and data about the huge economic benefits and the efficiency and the cost savings we can get, and especially with banks and governments. But to me, there's a more compelling way to explain this to them. It is the stories of comfort and convenience that can really help us make sense of this huge phenomenon. So the first story I'm going to tell you is from my home country, India, where my family lives. So I was there a few weeks ago, and I was with my family, and my sister was ordering food for all of us. So she was sitting there on the bed with her baby in one hand, and she has her mobile phone on the other hand, which she always has with her. It's like an extension of her. And she's typing away while we are chatting about what we would like to eat that day. And she's done ordering our food in about a couple of minutes. So I was curious. I asked her, what app did you use? I didn't know we had apps in this tiny town in the middle of nowhere. And she said, oh, we don't have an app. I just used WhatsApp. I don't know if anyone in this room has ever used WhatsApp to order food. But it's a completely new concept to me. I didn't get it. I asked her, what did you do on WhatsApp to order your food? And she showed me this. So here she is chatting with the restaurant, talking about the food she would like to have, where she would like to have it ordered. And the whole thing is done in about 3 minutes, by the way, very quick. But the most fascinating thing to me here is that she has moved money from her mobile virtual wallet into the virtual wallet of the restaurant. Now we need to think about it again. There's no cash involved, and not just that, there's no physical transaction at all. There's no credit card, no debit card. There's no money going through the wires. It's a pure subtraction and addition. It's pure mathematics. It's completely virtual. And this is a powerful concept if you think about it. And India is a really fascinating example of what happens when a country goes cashless. It has about 1.2 billion mobile phones in the country, about 220 million smartphones. And technology is readily available to do this kind of stuff. And one fine evening in November, the government decided that they would devalue two of the largest currency denominations in the country. So people had a choice. They could either get the new currency by standing in lines for hours or days in front of banks, branches, and cash machines, or instead, they could download this mobile wallet and make transactions right away. So the largest brand of mobile wallet in the country had 20 million customers before this happened. And in one day, the next day, they had 56 million customers. So that's what we are talking about, true transformation. And all the people who took mobile wallets today, they don't use cash anymore because there's no need to. And I come from a beach town, and I hear now that the fishermen who go out fishing in the early hours of the morning start selling their fish even before they reach the shore. So they start using mobile phones whose coverage extends all the way into the sea to sell the fish, get the payments, and the fish is given away the moment you arrive on the beach. So that's fresh fish for you right there. India is a great example of how technology and the consumers and the government have been together willing to accept going cashless as a strategy. And it's worked really well for them. And the convenience story is just one side of it. There are billions of people who have benefited, who have never had bank accounts, who can make transactions today. Now, the next story I'm going to tell you is about a small agricultural town in Colombia called Concepcion. A small town, about 4,500 people. And one of the biggest problems in Concepcion was crime. People had to travel by bus from Concepcion to Medellin, the next largest city in Colombia, to buy the supplies for education, for different needs. But there would be armed robberies on the way. If you're carrying cash, it's most likely to be taken away. So they had a real problem. They couldn't walk into a cash machine and withdraw cash safely there. So the government decided that we're going to try a pilot program of going cashless. So what they did was, they took a bottom-up approach. They did not get rid of cash machines and credit cards and debit cards in one day, but instead, they converted the cash machines into points where you could load your mobile wallets, where you could learn how to make mobile transactions, and you could actually transfer money virtually to your friends, family, and businesses. And they ran training programs in schools. So it was a very gradual approach with the help of the leading banks in that town and the mobile operator, of course, Devie, who all came together to make this happen. This happened 3 years ago, and today, 90% of businesses in Concepcion handle only digital transactions. Crime has come down to the point which has never been seen before in the history of Concepcion. And this program is now being piloted across Colombia. And now people are not worried about taking that bus ride to Medellin for their regular needs. All they need to do is load money into the virtual wallet, get on the bus. Once they get to Medellin, they can use the money from the wallet, download it as cash if they wanted to, but they don't need to. It's a fascinating story if you look at it. And the third story I'm going to tell you is about a largely cash-free country today, Sweden. I used to live in Sweden a long time ago. And I had this huge stash of currency, coins, and notes from that time, which I never used. And when I went back a couple of years ago to meet my friends and colleagues, I took the stash with me because I really wanted to get rid of them. But you know what? I still have that stash with me because they refuse to accept cash. So the cafes like this, they have signs saying, we are completely cash-free. We don't take cash anymore. And the coins I had with me, they're completely devalued. They don't exist anymore. There are no more coins in Sweden. So Sweden today has about 2% of their economic value in cash-based transactions. In fact, I was told that if you walk into a cash machine and withdraw a large sum of money, the police are called on you. Because why would you want cash unless you're a criminal? So with just 2% of the transactions in cash today, they're going to be completely cash-free in about 5 years. So it's, again, a fascinating example of what's happening in different parts of the world. And the UK is a strange situation that way. in that we all have smartphones. We love technology. London and other cities in the UK are really great technological hubs for developing new technology, for taking it to market, for consumers willing to test it. But for some reason, we are still cash-based in that 50% of the transactions happening in the UK are made with cash. If you're not using cash, we are using credit cards and debit cards and the new innovative technology like contactless cards and Oyster cards. But we are so far away from the virtual wallet concept today. And the Bank of England, interestingly, is having a debate about how to manufacture the new 20-pound notes. They're considering various options. And there's a whole lot of debate going on about the manufacturing process. So we need to remember the cost of cash, right? So the cost of cash includes the cost of printing notes, manufacturing them, discussions like this, and the security around transportation, the whole cost of transporting money from the bank to bank, the government to banks, and small businesses having to carry cash at the end of the day. The untaxed wealth, for example. Sweden found that they had $8 billion of untaxed wealth that could come back to them if they went cashless. So that was one of the primary drivers for them. So in the UK, that opportunity is there, but for some reason, it is heavily and firmly a cash-based society and culture. Now, why are some countries really good at it and some countries struggling with it? So I use a framework to understand this. So there are two axes I look at. So on one hand, you have the consumer acceptance score, which tells you whether the consumer or the population are willing to accept and try out new technologies. This includes the use of smartphones, internet, the propensity for shopping online. And on the other hand, you have the digital business evolution score, which tells you if you as a consumer is supported by businesses and the government to actually go cash-free. So this includes the government policies, the regulations, and of course the infrastructure available to the businesses, like point-of-sale machines. You could be on a Virgin train and you cannot buy food or drinks on it because there is no point-of-sale machine on a train. So it's a combination of these two factors, in my opinion, that drives a cashless society. And you can see some of the countries I spoke about: India, Sweden, Mexico, Colombia, Kenya, Nigeria. And Turkey as a country is in fact one of the best examples of a population willing to accept and use digital technologies. And for some reason, the second country is Somaliland. I haven't figured out why. And you can see that the UK is not too bad with the consumer acceptance, but we are still struggling on the government side. But we also need to remember that the journeys that Concepcion took and Sweden took, they do have certain problems as well. So there are two paths you can take to go cashless. So the path that Concepcion took and Sweden is taking is very much a linear path, in that they converted cash to credit cards and then debit cards, digital payment apps, PayPal, things like that. And then ultimately they launched an app in Sweden, they call it Swish. So it's a very, very linear journey that we have seen with these two countries. But if we look at the other path that India has taken and other countries in Africa like Kenya, Nigeria, etc., they have taken the exponential path, which means they have completely gone around the cycle of credit cards and debit cards or any physical device for transformation, and they have gone from cash to virtual wallets almost directly. And as you can see, that is highly disruptive. that mode will help you achieve cashlessness in a much, much faster way. And not just that, this actually creates an ecosystem. So this will sit within the ecosystem of mobile networks, the identity program of the country, the welfare program, the corporate incentives program. So it actually creates an ecosystem the moment you're virtual. And one of the best things that can happen is that we can provide basic services, healthcare, education, through this ecosystem, which has created banking opportunities. And I say banking, but it's actually financial movement opportunities for people in India and Africa. That's about 80% of the population of the individual countries, to access those services without ever having a bank account. That's truly transformational. So going cashless has the power to transform our lives and the economy and the world. Imagine a world where you use the readily available physical devices, your mobile phone, your household appliances, to make the transactions almost invisible for you. You don't even think about the payment you're making. For example, you could be walking on the street and it starts raining and an Uber stops right there for you. Or your washing machine realizes that your washing powder is finished and it orders it for you from Amazon, which is happening right now. Or you are a busy working mother on a treadmill and you can order your groceries while you are doing two things at once, as busy working mothers always do. Or you could be a government having billions of dollars in excess cash available to spend on health, universities, hospitals, schools, welfare, aid, development. And imagine a world where small business owners know exactly how much cash they have at any given point of time, and that money is already in their bank account. And imagine that world where children learn that cash is not the most important thing. There are much better ways to deal with life on a day-to-day basis, which is already happening. So the next time you take out your physical wallet or purse, I implore you, stop, have a think, and think about whether you can make the same transaction with your mobile phone. Thank you.